Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tangmen based on novel. So let's start. Shu Tianran nodded contentedly and said, I have the same intention too. To defeat our external foes, we have to pacify opposition within our borders first. I want to take care of the internal situation and take this opportunity to exterminate traitors. For this, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you, Imperial Tutor. At this point, a cold gleam crossed Shu Tianran's eyes. The corners of his mouth twitched as he betrayed a strong killing intent. The mysterious Imperial Tutor said plainly, that's right. Some people must be held accountable for this incident. As for those who are faultless, we can say that they perished in the explosion. I'll follow the list that you gave me earlier. Yes, said Shu Tianran as he nodded. The Imperial Tutor said, then, let me take this chance to congratulate your Majesty on your premature ascension to the throne. Shu Tianran said sincerely, when the Sun Moon Empire unites the continent, the Holy Ghost Church shall be the national religion. At that time, I'll name the founder of the church as the national god. All shall hold you in reverence, and you shall be elevated on a divine pedestal. That's for later, let's take care of things one step at a time, the Imperial Tutor said. He did not appear very excited. He nodded at Shu Tianran and then turned to leave. When he reached the entrance, he stopped and turned around. We can't devote all our strength over at the Western Mountain yet. However, I've already activated the mysterious land there. We'll trap them there and then take care of them later. By then, Shrek Academy will be totally drained. It'll be impossible for them to resist us anymore. Shu Tianran said, I had the same plan. However, can we really trap them? The mysterious Imperial Tutor intoned, that place imprisoned my grandfather for 100 years. He was not weaker than Uncle Long. In the end, he managed to take some things out from there, but they were just a small portion of the mysterious land. Mere mortals cannot resist that place. Once something goes wrong, it'll result in imprisonment spanning decades until death. After I activate it, even a titled Doluor can't fly there. He can only leave after going through various trials and tribulations. My grandfather made 3 errors when he was there and hence, he was trapped for 100 years. Did we not try it before? Among those whom we threw inside, less than 10% of them survived. I've already instructed Little Feng to bypass the Western Mountain, and got 4 of my elders to guard the exit. Even if they escape, they will still be killed. Good, Shu Tianran said as he nodded his head. It's all up to you, Imperial Tutor. The sky gradually lit up. When Huo Yuhao opened his eyes once more, purple and gold light shone in his eyes. His energy was indescribably vibrant. The mysterious 3-way cultivation had aided him, Wang Donga, and Wang Chuo immensely. While they only cultivated for around 4 hours, Huo Yuhao was able to increase his soul power by cultivating the difficult ultimate strength martial soul. Furthermore, the combined power of the purple and gold soul power was able to erode the ultimate ice, the origin energy of heaven and earth, in his lower limbs at twice the usual speed. It was akin to cultivating after ingesting distilled wine. Wang Donga and Wang Chuo opened their eyes too. Their 2 highly similar eyes, which reflected vastly different personalities, also shone with a layer of purple and gold light. Wang Donga experienced the greatest increase in soul power, because she did not have an ultimate martial soul. Wang Chuo and Huo Yuhao both possessed ultimate martial souls and hence, their increase was less than Wang Donga's. However, it was still substantial. The 3 of them looked at each other. An odd atmosphere permeated their surroundings. Even Wang Donga sensed that something felt wrong. Does this mean that the 3 of us are together? But. Huo Yuhao touched his nose, nodded at Wang Chuo and said, thank you. Wang Chuo stared at him, then shook her head as she said, it's fine. This benefits all of us. With that, she turned and walked away. Wang Donga's gaze turned soft. While Huo Yuhao thanked Wang Chuo, he said nothing else to her. It was clear who he was close with, and who he was not. She liked how Huo Yuhao did not try to beat about the bush. This clearly indicated to Wang Chuo that there was no chance between Huo Yuhao and her. Hence, she would not develop false notions. While this might appear hurtful, it was better to suffer less in relationships. Huo Yuhao raised his head to look at the sky. He was instantly surprised, because he realized that the sky was shrouded by fog 5 meters from the ground. Furthermore, he realized that the fog in the sky was changing color, Since you have all woken up, come over. Elder Xian's voice wafted over. Quickly, assisted by Wang Donga, Huo Yuhao entered his human-shaped soul tool. Then, he walked over to Elder Xian. The rest had already gathered. There was a solemn expression on Elder Xian's face. Huo Yuhao subconsciously released his spiritual detection. However, he was soon surprised. Despite having released spiritual detection, its radius was no more than 5 meters. Any further, and he felt like a clay cow in the sea. Not only could he not sense anything, but he could also feel something eating away at his spiritual power. How can this be? My spiritual detection can't even see as far as my eyes. Huo Yuhao had never experienced this before. Even in the setting sun forest, which had been saturated with a toxic miasma, he had still been able to use his spiritual detection. Elder Xian looked at Huo Yuhao and said, "You can feel it too, right? Our sensory abilities have been greatly weakened. The fog above our heads is like a cage, trapping us here. If we can't escape, we'll truly be caught in a rut." Wang Chua could not help but ask, "Can we not fly?" Elder Xian shook his head and said, "I tried, but it doesn't work. When I tried, it was as if the entire sky was resisting me. A powerful pressure forced me to land. The strength of this pressure surpasses what a normal person can resist. Even Long Xiaoyao, an ultimate Doluo, would find it impossible." When they heard Elder Xian's words, everyone could not help but gasp. The martial god Doluo Xian Lina frowned and said, "This is strange indeed. However, why did we not detect this when we flew over?" She and Elder Xian had personally flown over the Western Mountain. In one day, they had surveyed the entire Western Mountain, and yet they did not realize that there was something amiss. However, this transformation had now trapped everyone here. How could she and Elder Xian not fault themselves? Elder Xian intoned, "This area appears to be enveloped by a mysterious power. Even the ground is different. I tried to control the earth and burrow through the ground, but I failed. We appear to be trapped in an unbreakable prison." Elder Xian's martial soul, the godly Dao Tai Bu, was an earth-type martial soul. It could manipulate the ground very well. He had tried to use his powerful strength to alter his surroundings and break through the obstacles. However, he failed. "Does anyone have any plans?" "Speak," said Elder Xian, who was depressed and perplexed. However, he managed to keep a straight face. At this moment, he could not panic. If he did, these kids would panic even more. "Elder Xian, should we split into groups and explore? We can divide ourselves into smaller groups. This may not be a prison, but a maze instead. Perhaps we can walk out." Dai Huabin asked. Before he could finish his sentence, Bei Bei spoke, "No, we can't split up at this time. If you're right and this is indeed a maze, this is still a maze the Sun Moon Empire constructed for us. What if evil soul masters from the Holy Ghost Church are in here with us? The moment we split up, we'll become sitting ducks for them." Dai Huabin's face twitched. However, he did not dare to say anything to Bei Bei. In the inner courtyard, while Bei Bei's position could not compare with Zhong Lishuan's, he was still one of the more powerful members of the younger generation. In particular, his performance against the Holy Ghost sect team left a deep impression on everyone. Elder Xian looked at Huo Yuhao and said, "Speak, Yuhao." Huo Yuhao said, "I've just tried it, and the radius of spiritual detection is no more than 5 meters. It's no better than our sight." "You're right. Here, we are under the suppression of a mystical power, which can't be resisted by mere humans. However, I don't think that it's purely a cage. It must have its secrets. Since it's not something that humans can resist, it was definitely not built by the Sun Moon Empire. Their soul tools have not yet reached this level. Even a class 10 soul tool could not cover such a huge mountain. Hence, this is a natural formation. The Sun Moon Empire can only control it. Since it's made by nature, it's not a death trap. There's bound to be an escape. I agree with elder brother. At this time, we can't split up. Everyone should concentrate on one direction. Even if we return to where we started off, we'll make observations and discover new things. With these clues, we can improvise further. This is our last resort." "Right," Elder Xian said as he nodded. "All right, let's consume some of our rations and set off. Yuhao, come with me, I want to ask you something." "Yes," Huo Yuhao said as he quickly walked over to Elder Xian in his human-shaped soul tool. "How's your recovery?" Elder Xian asked. "I'm fine, Huo Yuhao replied. Elder Xian nodded and said, that's good. While I believe you, you need to provide me with an explanation for the powers you revealed yesterday at the Radiant City Elite Soul Engineering Tournament. Also, what happened to the person who possessed the Holy Angel? Did you really kill her? Huo Yuhao was shocked. The explosion last night had left a great impact on him, and he had forgotten about the incident with Yigai. Elder Xian, the power I unleashed yesterday can be said to be my third martial soul. However, I don't think this power comes from our world. Then, he explained Electrolux's origins to Elder Xian in a way he could understand. At this moment, there was no way he could hide the truth. Even with Elder Xian's experience, he was shocked. A sorcerer. A profession in another world. This, Elder Xian regained his senses after a long while. Helplessly, he patted Huo Yuhao's shoulder and said, Yuhao, while your power is unique, you should know what it means to be an evil soul master on this continent. The cooperation between the Sun Moon Empire and the evil soul masters infuriates every soul master. Your power, however, appears similar to those of evil soul masters. Huo Yuhao nodded and said, Elder Xian, I understand what you mean. I won't use this power casually. I won't even use it with my original appearance. The participant of the Radiant City Elite Soul Engineering Tournament was Tang Wu, not Huo Yuhao. Elder Xian sighed in relief and said, it's good that you understand. Your spirit eyes and Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion are powerful enough. Train them well. Can you release Yigai now? Huo Yuhao tried, but then shook his head and said, the invisible power here is too strong. I can't communicate with the spectral demiplane teacher Electrolux left me. However, she'll be in no danger inside the demiplane. I've already tried to protect her as much as I could. With her powers, she can go without food for at least half a month. Elder Xian nodded and said, good job. If we can leave this place, we must protect this child with the Holy Angel Martial Soul. In the future, she will become one of the main forces of resistance against the Holy Ghost Church. Yuhao, my attitude yesterday was wrong. When I saw such a huge explosion, coupled with your evil soul master-like power, I started to doubt you. Then, I gave it more thought. You were chosen by Elder Mu, how can be there anything wrong with you? However, you must remember that no matter where you are, no matter what you experience, no matter what happens to you, you must be true to yourself. Do you understand? Huo Yuhao nodded vigorously and said, I will, Elder Xian. Elder Xian smiled slightly and said, now that we're in a death trap, please be careful. Go and have a bite. Now that they had resolved this small conflict, Elder Xian was in a much better mood. Together with Huo Yuhao, they walked back into the main camp. Everyone had finished their meals by now, and were regrouping. Through Elder Xian's arrangements, everyone was divided into 3 groups. Among them, Shrek's 7 monsters were a group by themselves. They were led by Elder Xian. The team from Shrek split into 2 groups. Wang Qiu'er, Zhong Lishuan, and the main fighting force of the team from Shrek were in one team. They were led by the martial god Doluo Xian Lina. The remaining substitutes, along with the Tang sect's substitutes and Jiao Delu, Ji Juechen, Jing Ziyan, and Nan Chocho, formed the biggest group. The other 4 titled Doluo from Shrek Academy were in charge of them. Among these 4 titled Doluo, 2 of them were elders from the Sea God's Pavilion with the strength of transcendent Doluo. They were the strongest team. Elder Xian walked with Shrek's 7 monsters at the front. Xian Lina led the second group in the center. The 4 titled Doluo and the third group stayed at the back. All of the groups had to be able to communicate verbally with each other so that they would not be too far apart. They also tried to leave markings on more distinctive plants as they passed. This was a dumb plan, but it was also their only plan. After they left their marks on all the plants, any plant with no marks would indicate a brand new direction. This was how they moved forward. As they moved forward, they had to be careful. They were not fast, and while the area 5 meters above the ground was not shrouded with a dense fog, there was still a light fog. Coupled with the thick vegetation, they could only see about 10 meters ahead. The entire forest was so quiet it was terrifying. It was as if there was nothing alive there. This silence was so creepy that it terrified everyone. Dai Huabin now felt that his previous suggestion had been very stupid. The silence would have been a lot scarier had they separated, to the point whereby it might drive them mad. They walked forward and soon, 2 hours had passed. Huo Yuhao walked directly behind Elder Xian. This was done upon his request. Suddenly, he turned to Elder Xian and asked, Elder Xian, do you feel that this feels different from last night? We seem to be on a path with no return. Elder Xian nodded and said, I have the same feeling too. Right now, the path is different from the path yesterday, which made us walk in circles. This could be good news. Now that there was no chance of heading back, they would surely find a possible exit as long as they headed forward. They continued to walk forward. After 2 more hours, Elder Xian was sure they were no longer walking around in circles. Throughout their journey, they did not see any repeated scenery. Furthermore, they did not see the marks which they were leaving on the plants again. While they could not fly, and they could not use their spiritual power for long-range detection, there was a chance that they could walk out of here. This made them content. At this moment, it was already noon. The fog made their surroundings extremely blurry. The air felt heavy. Elder Xian ordered everyone to take a break here. They set up camp like last night. The advantage of numbers demonstrated itself. At the very least, the silence of the forest did not terrify them too much. For those with storage-type soul tools, they brought more than enough food. The only ones with no food were those from the Tang sect. They only had rare metals in their storage-type soul tools. They were only able to eat by asking the elders for some food. Elder Xian sat with Shrek's 7 monsters. As he ate his favorite chicken drumstick, he said, according to the size of the Western Mountain, we should be able to leave this place in 1 more day, if we continue to walk at our current speed. Bei said, let's hope that this is the case, but... While he did not say it, everyone understood what he meant. The Sun Moon Empire brought them here for a reason. How could they escape so easily? Elder Xian looked at him and said, there's no but. Right now, we can only walk step by step. With our food and water supply, we can last 10 days. If we still can't get out by then. At this point, Elder Xian's face turned severe. He raised his head to look at the sky. Everyone knew what he meant. If they still couldn't escape, he would risk it all and attempt to fly. Perhaps there was still a sliver of hope there. As they spoke, danger suddenly appeared around them. Everyone subconsciously looked in one direction. Then, a gold and silver light surged toward them like a wave. Instantly, it covered every single one of them. Everyone unleashed their most powerful protective skills simultaneously. However, this all-encompassing light did not clash with them. In their hearts, however, they all sensed that something was amiss. What is this? They looked at each other. They were all covered with a layer of faint gold and silver light. For the younger members of Shrek Academy, their faces turned dismal. The unknown was the scariest. No one knew what was going on, and hence, there was no way to resist it. However, they quickly sensed that something was amiss. A powerful attractive force came along with the silver and gold light. The weaker ones were instantly pulled flying in one direction. Elder Xian cried out and raised his hands. Thick yellow light surged forth and enveloped everyone within it. However, the attractive force of the silver and gold light became even stronger. Even the yellow light Elder Xian unleashed was being tugged by it. It started to move in the same direction. What is this? Xian Lina, the martial god Doluo, had a bad temper. She struck out with her right fist, and a powerful cluster of soul power bombarded the silver and gold light. However, after her soul power entered the fog in front of her, nothing happened. One had to know that Xian Lina was one of the more powerful title Doluo in Shrek Academy. Earlier, when she faced off against the scorpion tiger Doluo Zhongpeng, she was able to stand her ground. Huo Yuhao, who was in the human-shaped soul tool, looked surprised. Light flashed in his mind. Something appeared to be moving in it. A thought flashed through his mind. Gold and silver, attractive force, he had seen something like this somewhere before. However, before he could give it any more thought, the attractive force increased in strength. This time, even Elder Xian could not resist it. Grab onto each other, we can't get separated. Elder Xian shouted. While he could not resist the attractive force, he was still able to ensure everyone stayed together. The yellow light turned into a huge yellow ball of light, which covered everyone. Then, the gold and silver attractive force lifted their huge ball of light into the sky, and sent them flying at breakneck speed into the sky. On the bright side, they had resolved their flight problem. Quickly, everyone was sucked into the thick fog, where they could not even see the fingers on their hands. A heavy look crossed Elder Xian's face, as he activated all his soul power to protect everyone. The other titled Doluor were not idle, as they also used their pure soul power to form a barrier. After Elder Xian cast his big barrier, the others cast smaller ones. They were now one step closer to protecting everyone. These kids were the best soul masters of the next generation. Furthermore, Shrek Academy was ultimately still a school, not a sect. No matter what happened, the safety of their students took precedence. Bringing these kids back safely was more important than anything else. Huo Yuhao was in a state of deep thought. He searched his memory. This phenomenon seemed similar to something he had seen before. However, as he was inside the human-shaped soul tool, his friends could not see what he was up to. Everyone else was tense, and no one had the time to look at him. The attractive energy appeared to be getting stronger. However, it was not destructive. The protective soul barrier Elder Xian had unleashed separated them from the outside world. Everyone released their martial souls in preparation. To them, the situation was too odd. Even Elder Xian, someone with the cultivation of an ultimate Doluor, could not resist it head-on. What terrifying power! While an ultimate Doluor was not strong enough to move mountains or drain oceans, it would not be difficult for him to wreck an entire city. And yet, he could not resist this shapeless gold and silver energy. Everyone, make your preparations. Elder Xian shouted. His body shook, and his 9 soul rings shone brightly. His body started to expand, and he turned into a godly Daotai bull, sweeping everyone onto his back. The light he unleashed became brighter, and they were now being moved at a much slower speed. While they were still moving, it was no longer as quickly as before. They continued to fly through the air, pulled by the attractive power. As they could not sense their surroundings, and their sight was blocked by the fog, everyone felt as if they were in the clouds. After 15 minutes, the scene before them began to clear up. They had emerged from the thick fog. This is... Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked in disbelief. The scene before them was that shocking. None of them could have imagined it. While they were in the thick fog, they all sensed danger around them. However, at this moment, they were shocked by the majestic water before them. All of their negative emotions from before were gone. Before them was a wide lake. It was surrounded by mountains, and the water of the lake was so clear that one could see its bottom. Strangely, the water was gold and silver. At the center of the lake was a round patch of gold. The intense golden light spread outward from the patch, as if it were a reflection of the sun. They could see a moon encircling it, sun and moon connected to one another. The moon gave off a silver light. The vast lake was completely dominated by these two colors of gold and silver. The two-colored light spread outward non-stop. It crept across the mountain and spread far into the distance. How beautiful, how stunning. Everyone looked dazedly at the scene before them, rather disbelieving. However, it was real. Furthermore, under the pull of the gold and silver light, they gradually approached the center of the lake. I know. Huo Yuhao shouted. When he saw the shocking scene before his eyes, all the dots in his brain connected. He finally thought of where he had heard about this curious scene. He said urgently, almost shouting, later, no matter what we encounter, if a voice asks you questions, you must reply truthfully. If you lie, you'll be in mortal danger. Remember to speak the truth, especially when it comes to relationships. You must not lie. Right when he finished, they were already in the center of the lake, above the golden sun and the silver moon. The golden sun and silver moon in the lake became extremely radiant. The radiant gold light and the bright silver light started to rise and engulf all of them, including Elder Xian, who was still in his godly Daotai bull form. This power was extremely unique. It appeared about them effortlessly. They could feel it, but they realized that they were unable to control it. Elder Xian's martial soul true body was forced back into his original shape by the two-colored light, before they were all completely covered by it. When they could see other again, they were shocked to discover that they were all placed inside separate gold and silver bubbles, floating in mid-air. Everyone was split apart, and no two people were together. Many of them were terrified. All they could remember were Huo Yuhao's words. When Huo Yuhao said that, he had used his spiritual power, His words were imprinted in all of their minds. Before they could make any more observations, the gold and silver bubbles started to descend into the sun and moon in the center of the lake. Wang Dong looked at Huo Yuhao, and he looked back at her. He nodded at her vigorously and gestured toward her. His meaning was clear: "Don't worry about me, do as I said." Wang Dong nodded to show that she understood. Had it been an ordinary person, they may already have collapsed when faced with such a change. However, the students of Shrek Academy were the top of their generation. In comparison, they were taking it all rather well. While they were shocked, surprised, and a bit terrified, they all seemed relatively stable. There were loud plops as the gold and silver light that surrounded them dropped them into the lake. When he fell into the lake, Huo Yuhao did not feel the gold-colored lake around him. Instead, heaven and earth spun around. At this moment, he recalled his source of information about this place. He had first encountered records of this place from the Icefire Yinyang well in the Setting Sun Forest, where he had obtained the poison chapter from the ancestor of the Tang sect, Tang San. In the poison chapter, it stated that the Icefire Yinyang well was one of the 3 great blessed lands. It contained the power of ultimate ice and ultimate fire, and was extremely dangerous. However, it contained countless natural treasures as well. Any plant that grew there would grow 10 times faster. Those who could enter it would benefit immensely. When Huo Yuhao actually entered it, he was shocked by the many divine herbs and plants. Then, he was able to retrieve the yearning heartbroken grass to save Wang Dong. However, he was also severely injured by the blazing sun spring and the extreme chill ice spring, and barely made it back alive. According to Tang San's records, the 3 great blessed lands were both dangerous and filled with treasures. He had to surmount countless dangers before he could enter the Icefire Yinyang well. If not for his abilities, which were barely enough, there was no way he could have entered. The place before him was another of the 3 great blessed lands. It was ranked above the Icefire Yinyang well, and it was the top blessed land among the 3. This place was known as the Yinyang Love Querying Valley. In the poison chapter, no one knew if the 3 great blessed lands were real or not. Tang San had only seen the Icefire Yinyang well. No one was sure if the Yinyang Love Querying Valley actually existed. The Yinyang Love Querying Valley was the first among the 3 great blessed lands not because of its riches, but because of its danger. Furthermore, no one knew what kind of danger existed here. To benefit from it was exceedingly difficult. Legend had it that in the god realm, after the goddess of love was betrayed by her love, her grief made her insane, and she descended into the mortal world. Heaven and earth were inverted, and the sun and moon became a lake. As the goddess of love was betrayed by her lover, she hated all those who betrayed their lovers. Hence, when these kinds of people entered the sun-moon lake of the Yinyang Love Querying Valley, it would enrage her, and she would seek to exterminate them. Only those who were true to their lovers could leave this place alive and reap its rewards. All liars would be severely punished. Huo Yuhao did not remember all this, because the poison chapter was extremely vague in its description. The most important line from it was, "The sun and moon form its lake, the earth shall ask about your love." Those who are true may take the risk, but those who show true love are invincible here. With such a blurry description, Huo Yuhao would not have been able to remember the short line from the poison chapter, had he not seen the golden sun and silver moon. Even Tang San doubted the existence of the Yinyang Love Querying Valley. Hence, he only left one tip. Speak the truth, and be true to your love. Only then could one survive. Other than that, there was no other information about it. Hence, while Huo Yuhao knew a bit more than the rest, this was the full extent of his knowledge. Everything around him swelled like the celestial bodies in the sky. The scenes around him changed non-stop. Even though Huo Yuhao tried to shut his eyes, he still felt dizzy. It seemed to impact someone with stronger spiritual power more. Finally, when he felt the dizziness subside, he opened his eyes once more. He seemed to be in a transparent world. Everything around him was made from gold and silver crystals. He remained in his bubble, but he appeared to have landed on a round surface. This surface was light gold in color. It was about 20 meters wide, and near its edge were 13 circles with a diameter of 1 meter. He had landed in one of these circles. This video will end here.